Welcome back to the Sense and Sensibility podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad,
and the unnecessary products we come across every day as moderators on Steam Hunt, a Steam blockchain-based product hunting site.
I'm Dalio.
And I'm Team Humble. Let's get started.
Well, you can't welcome back to something that you've never done before, so that's a little bit weird. I do apologize for that. Hello, everybody. I'm Phil at Team Humble on Steam and also on the Steam Hunt website.
And I'm Dale, and I am also the same in all of those places. And
Super awkward.
This has been, you know what? It's only awkward if you announce it, but
it was awkward, though. I'm just getting straight into it anyway. So this is the first podcast that we've decided to spin off from our first one. We've got another one, anchor.fm/positive, which is about just us chatting together about a bunch of things, positive and negative of things in the world. And we decided that it was probably a good idea, or it was the time to get started on another podcast specifically about products. One of the things that we have both got into over the last, I would say 3 months, maybe 3 months, 4 months we've been on Steam Hunt. How long?
Oh, we've been on longer. We've been modding for about 3 months, but I think it's been, about at least six to 8 months. Close to 8 for you, yeah.
Right.
The better part of a year.
Yeah, I guess so, actually. So beginning of when it started as a hunter, just hunting stuff before they were looking for mods, for sure. So one of the things that's come out of that is that there's been this constant conversation that we have, because we're both mods in a group of 10 or 12 mods that are kind of spread out around the world, is that you get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff that you go through every day. It's like working in a call center or some other job where it's like public facing. And I kind of knew how much of a chip on my shoulder I had about certain products, right? I have a chip on my shoulder about lots of things, but that one specifically, and it was interesting to me how close to my heart it was in terms of almost as bad as a career or education. It runs deep, products run deep with people.
Sure.
So I guess to quickly catch people up, because this is the first one we've done, ProductSense is going to be a podcast about the good and the bad and the fugly of all things products. And what I hope that it will eventually be is people that we get on here that do hunting on the Steam Hunt website, people who just like products in general and gadgets and tech and sustainability, and open up that bigger question, or those number of questions about products in general. What fascinates us so much about them?
Yeah.
And
So, I think something interesting to note also, if you're not interested or if you're not familiar with Steam Hunt as a platform, if you've ever heard of Product Hunt, it's very, we mentioned it in the intro, but it's very similar to Product Hunt, except that you're rewarded for your contributions. And I think the dynamic that kind of brings is a microcosm of the bigger problem that we have about products in general, which is quality over quantity. And so that's, I think, the main thing that kind of spurred us to start talking about this and sharing our talks about this, is because if you're getting rewarded for sharing a product, then it starts becoming, okay, how many can I share a day then? And how much can I get per product? And that's really that's kind of the ethos behind the products that we're not sure of. Should they exist in the world? How are they serving us? So I think there's a lot to talk about there.
Well, it ties into a lot of the sustainability or the beef I had about a number of years back about, so just to go back a little bit, because one of the parts of this was to do an intro about who we are, our history of products and technology. So I just want to quickly go back on that, history of products and technology. I've always been a bit of a technology geek. I'm sure you have been the same. You've always liked bits of electronic equipment throughout the years, ever since your kind of Walkman days in the 80s. I don't know why this keeps happening, but every time I start a podcast, my voice disappears. So
the hydration.
One of the things that I've noticed over the years, working with products and technology to allow me to make video and audio and stuff, is that I've watched the change in the way that products are sold from companies, right? So you have the YouTube influencers and, makeup and technology. And I think I think there's almost like a fashionista thing about technology these days, that there's certain levels of it. There's like the working class pieces of technology, which are low prices, the mid range, and there's obviously the luxury items. And obviously luxury in these times when markets and money is scarce, or appears to be scarce for some people and not for others. Obviously the luxury market gets affected. But we're starting to see a really interesting thing happen with audience development, that using things like Instagram, using things like YouTube, people can now, they can onboard these influencers to help push that product, because they've already built up audiences of people following them for whatever reason. They might like them being funny or the humorous. They've got a certain delivery, or they're just, they're kind of people. And I see this across the board from all walks of life, from, kids watching, people in their 20s play games, all the way through to like people of an elderly age, like playing One Man's Sky, or whatever that's called. That game,
No Man's Sky. Yeah,
No Man's Sky, like playing that for 15 hours from like a old people's home. Yes, that exists.
Heck
it's on Twitch.
Sign me up for that reality Black Mirror.
This guy's on there
style.
for 15 hours a day. He's making coin in an old people's home. Like the guy is, it touches. And my point is, it gets to every part of society.
Sure.
Right?
So wait, is this still your history?
That's kind of a bit of a history, yeah. Okay. Sorry, what's going on? You go for it.
Okay, so in terms of my history, like I think I've been like a gadget person. Like before tech became gadget, or gadgets became techie, I was always the kid who was like between cartoons and the As Seen on TV commercials. I was watching As Seen on TV. Like I was that kid who was just the absolute like memory sponge of all of that stuff, and I'd be like, and for $9.95, blah blah blah. Like I could memorize all that stuff. I'd be a little parrot walking around the house, driving my parents crazy, because I just thought like the idea of solving a problem. I think I wasn't conscious of this when I was young, but the idea of like solving a major problem with like just something that you can change your life slightly, and then have like a more efficient life or a better life. Like that was always so like, intriguing to me. Of course, I grew up in America. That's like the whole advertising ethos. So,
shopping channel.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that stuff's addictive. I mean, especially before it's like social media and YouTube videos and the internet, like that's what you watched as a kid. Like it
was the early social engineering, right?
It was 1 a.m, you're like, Mom, we need these Japanese knives. Can you see it cut through a boot? This is crazy. Get over here. Like
I don't remember what the film was. Maybe you remember the film where there was the woman that sold the mop. Do you remember that film?
Yes, the one it was played by Jennifer Lawrence, and that's all I remember, but that's enough for you to Google, like if you guys are interested in that. It was Jennifer Lawrence in the film. I
think that's a great segue between how things were maybe in I don't know if that was the 50s. I think it was the 50s.
Maybe
that's a great segue from the 50s to where we are in 2018, because in this film, this woman has a product. She's an inventor. She wants to change her situation. She wants to get out of like where she lives. She wants to bring some money in. She's pretty smart in terms of like coming up with inventing things that are practical and will like speed up things around the home. And she wants to do that for herself because she wants to just optimize things. That's just the way her brain works. But the product doesn't sell because it gets put through somebody else's hand who hasn't got any passion for it. Right. So you're starting to see the early signs of what it is to be a brand advocate, because as soon as they decide to put her on the television, then people can identify with that person. And then it's like, oh yeah, this is a woman who works, she's
like the first Kickstarter. Like that's exactly. Somebody who was like, oh, I have a problem. Hold on, let me get in on this, instead of waiting for somebody else to come in and fix these. And so what we have right now with blockchain, and we have a perfect example for it, is that if you are from, I don't know, anywhere in the world, and you want to be an influencer and a product reviewer, it's incredibly difficult to break into that, because people have already developed and built up audiences. Like the TV set in the 1950s, the audience was the people at the other end who didn't know they needed to buy it yet. Right? So the wonderful thing about Steam Hunt is that it's a very fair, well, it is now. It took a bit of while to like get the algorithms right, and they're still being worked on. We've got account-based voting now, which is, I think, the first iteration of that on the Steam blockchain, where anybody can submit a product that they love that doesn't exist on the platform. And as long as it kind of appears in the top 100-ish hunts, we get about 200 a day. We have to like verify 400. We have a team of 10 people around the clock going through that.
you get incentivized. You get a upvote from a bid bot, and that bid bot has been given delegation from Steemit Inc. and a bunch of other delegators. I think probably 14 or 15 delegators of about 1.5 million Steam power. You don't need to know what that is, but basically it's like a pot of funds that get distributed to other people.
It's like an investment, right?
Right. And one of the wonderful things about Steam Hunt is it's an up and running project. It's been working now, like you said, for 7 or 8 months or so. And it's also, every time you put up a hunt, you also get a certain share in hunt tokens if you comment and upvote on the things that you like on the platform as well. So it's very, very holistic 360 degree thing. It's not just like you're putting a product up and you forget about it. One of the things with Product Hunt, the website itself, is I can put up there's a great new designer program, but I won't get anything from it. I might get a bit of social traction. It might affect my social graph a little bit, the relationship between this person, that person, and such and such, shared this and this looks good, but I don't get any financial incentive for my time, or I don't feel invested in that community or valued in that community in some way. Maybe that's just me because of blockchains and Steam in general. But
yeah, and if that link or whatever you share goes completely viral and it generates tons and tons of traffic for Product Hunt, the original Product Hunt, the website, there's nothing that's even there's no like compensation for you at all. It's just like, okay, well,
Zero.
Like everyone upvoted this and they really like it. If it's your project, you're stoked because you're getting exposure for it. But being the one who found it or found something that's quality or, really revolutionary, you don't get anything even extra.
Well, we kind of got something that we never had before with Product Hunt. And that was, if you put something up on the web, you didn't necessarily get a ton of, if like, for instance, I put that on WordPress,
sure,
doesn't necessarily mean I would get traffic and comments. So I guess what Product Hunt gave us was a platform to have basically a landing page, but with activated comments. So there is an audience there who are waiting for the next big thing on Product Hunt to land. So we do get something out of Product Hunt. It just doesn't financially incentivize us, right? There is a value there. I can't say that there isn't a value.
Sure.
So the geniuses at Steam Hunt, which is a bunch of Korean guys, I think one of the guys is living in Ireland now, but the other guy's in South Korea, they come up with an idea. Hey, why don't we run a similar thing, but on top of the Steam blockchain? And it's been absolutely, I don't know about you, but I think it's probably one of my top 5, at least, Steam web apps that are out there. Mainly because I've integrated with Bin as mods in to watch it kind of mature and how often they put things through. So that's kind of the background for us, really, is that a bit of a history about the products and technology, a bit of an introduction for us. Why we started this podcast. I think the biggest takeaway that I want to get from this every single week is I want to try and have a dialogue, and I really want to open up the conversation about what objects, material possessions that we have, what they really mean to us, our decision making when we buy these products. Do we concern ourselves about sustainability of it? Like when we get rid of it, we throw it away. Do we get anxiety about stuff that we buy and we fill up our houses with this stuff and then we don't use it?
Right.
Like I didn't realize how much I had so many different opinions about products.
Right. Well, that's like, if we go back to Tinydale reciting, as seen on TV things, the biggest gap there was that when I was growing up, no one ever told me all that plastic is going to have to go somewhere eventually. So I was kind of like, as a kid, I was like addicted to the high of the newest and the latest and the greatest. And like, what's the new version? And what's this? Because that was exciting to me. And it still is exciting based on like an innovation standpoint. But I think as I started to understand, like, materials matter, things like the fuel that goes in the planes that ship these things all over the world, everything has a cost. It's like, we talk about the dust to dust ratio. So like we have this saying that all things are, permissible, but not all things are beneficial. So that's kind of the big thing I want to explore with you in this, is that maybe something does even solve a minor problem in my life, but is it worth that cost? Like I'm always kind of struggling with that, because there's a part of me who's like, oh, that's really cool, blah, blah, blah. And then I think about like, all right, well, if it's in a landfill in a year and a half, like what are we really doing?
So what we're really saying, and what I'm hearing from you is, with products, as you kind of get older, your journey with products, there's it affects the product buying cycle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think
I mean, did you know where China, I mean, you probably did, but like, did you think about when you looked at a box when you were a kid at Christmas and you saw made in China or made in Taiwan? Did that ever trigger anything in your brain? Did you ever think about like?
Yeah, I mean, I was aware of everything being made in China. Like growing up in the 80s, that's when like that was like really a thing. But I only saw it through the lens of my parents, and my parents, who, you know, are absolutely lovely people, they kind of only saw it from a perspective of like, oh, everything's made in China nowadays. It's not like the good old days of made in America. It was more from an economic. The criticism was more from an economic perspective,
sure,
less than from like a quality or sustainability, which that's fine. That's not what it was on anybody's mind in the 80s. So, you know, you can't judge. People didn't have the data yet, but it was more like, oh, well, you know, it's not like the good old days made in China. So I didn't really understand that any of that stuff could actually harm or be, you know, or be of a detriment. Or I didn't, you know, as a kid, you have no concept of like, what am I going to do with this in 6, 8, 12 months, 2 years? Is this going to last me? Is this going to, you know, you're a kid. Everything's just like, you're just on to the next thing. So, I also, as you get older, I think you develop more of a, like I do, I'm such a sentimental person. I develop like a relationship with my belongings, and I appreciate the things that I have for a long time, for longer. Like that backpack with the really good stitching that's going to last you, that you're going to bring on the plane and go experience this thing and go do that thing with. That is like, that's something I want to be with me. I don't want a new one every couple of months. So, you know, you have different needs and kind of like you have a different perspective as you grow up as well, I think.
These things become kind of part of your identity, don't they? And I guess that's why people buy products in the first place. So I think what's going to happen is that we're going to probably go all over the place about products. I feel like I'm going to go all over the place. The reason why I brought up the China thing is, you know, I was completely naive as a child that thing was mass produced and it sat on the boat for 6 weeks. Right. You know, like I had no idea how much the cost difference was compared to trying to make that in England. The fact that we needed to get parts from all different places in the world because the resources are in different places. The fact that it had to be on a truck and be distributed somewhere else and flown here and flown there. And, you know, it's only through using products and them failing or breaking, or me discovering that things didn't live up to the expectations that I had in my head, or the expectations that media had put onto me, that it was the best thing, that the amount of money that I paid for a product, therefore I don't know where it happened, but there was this kind of illusion that the cost predicated the quality. Right. Like that. And that is a cool thing I think I really want to get across in this podcast, because I'm hoping that there's an education for myself in terms of learning more. I hope there's an education for people maybe just getting into products for the first time because they've only for the first time had access to blockchain. Therefore they're getting incentivized. They're making more money per day or per month than they've ever had in their lives, which then opens up for them to be able to buy things for their family and friends and themselves, mobile phones, etc. And what I realized, and the reason why I was so like wanting to start this podcast, is that educating other people, the journey we've been on, can accelerate somebody else's journey. Because if we don't do that, we're not solving climate change on the product side. Right. Yes, we've got problems where people are cutting down the Amazon, like we're putting gases into the sky from things that are breaking down from the last 20, 30 years. But also, if we're not learning to realize that the source of certain materials, we're starting to get the whole idea with plastic. Plastic's had its run, it's had its day. People are starting to invent new technology that breaks down into the environment better. Like I just think there's such a big conversation to have about products. My biggest beef at the moment is when I just submitted a drone yesterday, right? The second version of a DJI drone.
Before you go there, can I just add something really fast?
Yeah, okay. Go.
So here's kind of like, I believe this is what you're saying, and I'm I really agree. I think a lot of what the problem is, and I'm not going to sit here and say this is the problem, but I'm kind of going to.
Okay.
But, if people are starting to use owning things and owning material possessions and technology as their content, maybe we, instead of, that's going to have to turn over really fast because people want to keep up with their content schedules, like sharing things online. And if I have this thing, then I have it, I can post about it and I can share that. But then in a week, I'm going to have to share something else. And I think some of our consumerism is now being fueled by buying things
FOMO.
as content.
FOMO.
Right.
Fear of missing out.
Right. But what if we could switch that? And I talked about the backpack earlier. Maybe we could story tell the things that we've had for a really long time. That's what this podcast is. Exactly.
That's what this podcast will be, yeah.
And the things that mean something to us and why we own them and the adventures that we have with them and their role in our everyday life. And that becomes the content instead of it just being like the new thing, because I get it.
Yeah.
And everything in consumerism is forcing you to want to buy that new thing. So it's the default. Nobody intends to ruin the planet by buying an iPhone charger. I don't think anybody has that thought, like, screw the ocean as they're buying it.
Yeah, we kind of need that. We kind of need the ocean.
Yeah.
We kind of need the things that are in it. Everything's a certain balance, and we're knocking a lot of stuff out of balance.
So yeah, we're just like, just like bring awareness to a way that we could kind of shift that. So tell me about your drone.
Yeah, so I mean, the only reason why I kind of put that up yesterday is that I don't want a drone. Again, it's FOMO. I like the idea of the drone. I like the idea of adding that video thing to my arsenal. I know that I would never buy one unless I knew I was going to be using it regularly. If I had like a steady income from a job like that, I could actually use it. Otherwise, it's just going to sit around. It's just going to be an object.
But when it's part of your trade, you do get excited about it. If it's part of like making, and that's something you're passionate about, when somebody builds a lens that's slightly better, you're like, oh, hell yeah. Like, well, everybody has that.
Sure. But also there's a lot of life lessons to adopt and be influenced by. So the big thing about this one that just come out, this is version 2. So my biggest tip that I can give anybody is never buy version 1 of a new technology. Right? Never buy version 1 of a technology, because you're really paying for the R&D of the next one. Right? They're not necessarily got it right. So with DJI, luckily their first one was pretty good because they'd built a bunch of other ones before it. But their particular line, the Mavic line, was kind of like their real attempt at getting it like spot on. And they did. It was brilliant. But I just watched a video yesterday that Casey Neistat did about a review, and it was a brilliant review because he kind of he ran both of them side by side, which another thing I need to throw in there, if you're an influencer and you're getting something brand new for the first time, if you're only getting it out of the box, that's not using the product.
Yeah, that's an unboxing. That's not a review.
That's not a review. And a review is something like you do that you've had for a certain period of time, and how it integrates into your life, not how it makes you look, not how it makes you feel, but how it works.
Right. Well, there's pressure on the content schedule to put that out before the product is like yesterday's news. And I think that's a big part of why that happens, is people are like, oh, well, that's the ad word that's trending at the minute. So let me put my, hat in the pot and get my views from it.
But this is where I kind of want to jump in on the whole drone debacle, because I really want to get to the crux of the problem, because
Drone Gate. Okay, so what happened? What was the big frustration?
So like what tends to happen on Steam Hunt is somebody at the beginning of Steam Hunt, when people were in the top 10, people were getting big payouts because we didn't have account-based voting. So there was a lot of gaming going on and people trying to force their way up to the top just to get the big payout. And there still is this occasional thing where people will see something in the top 10 and they're like, oh my God, this speedboat does well. I will hunt a speedboat.
They were like, I will adapt new information.
Well, but the thing is, I've decompressed it and unpacked it, and I get it. Like, somebody who doesn't have an authority on any of those factors as to what they go through when, like you go to any store and watch a man or a woman like feeling like the material of some, you don't need to feel the material of some jeans, but people do it. They'll pick up a pair of jeans, they'll check the pockets, they'll look at the bottom, they'll pull them, they'll see if there's a bit of elasticity in the, like they go through all of these like subtle nuances that you don't realize that you're doing. They're just try them on. Like there's a bunch of things that people do because they've done that before, right?
Professional seamstress of 80 years. You don't know what's going on with that stitching.
So my big thing is that I don't think people knew the difference between a $1,500 drone and a $50 drone. And so what we started seeing people posting like what looked like flashy drones. You could obviously tell that somebody in China was mass producing these drones. And I just wondered if people knew the difference between they looked like the same drone, just the price was different. And so I'm really interested in unpacking this idea, this notion that people want the experience, not the product, right? In that a $50 drone is not going to perform like a $1,500 drone. But if you don't know about build quality, if you don't know about software updates, if you don't know about longevity of that product or the reason why it costs more, like buying the $50 drone seems like you're getting the experience without having to pay out the money. But the downfall there for me is, and the thing that infuriates me so much inside, and I can't really put a finger on it, is that I know that product is going to be broken in a couple of months. I know the experience is going to be terrible.
Right.
I know the software is going to be janky. I know there's just going to be a million and one things why that experience is terrible.
Well, yeah.
And then
tough too, because we are kind of brought up to feel like it's savvy to save money and that you're doing the right thing to save money, right. And that brands just exploit you because it's a brand name. And this is just as good. It's just that you're paying a brand tax for that. But really understanding what products like can you afford? Like I've talked about brandless before for just food stuff. So what things can we buy generic that really won't make a difference and save money? And which are the things that it's going to make a huge difference, like you're saying, to your frustration levels and to the fact that it's going to break and the software is going to be a nightmare to use. Like it's hard to know if you don't know. It's just hard to natively know like which are the things that you spend on and which are the things that you don't.
Well, that value thing for me is interesting. You know, we're willing to throw $50 away on the experience and be like, oh well, it did. You know, it was $50. It didn't work out. At least it wasn't $1,500. And yet you've not had that $1,500 experience. Some people don't want to use it for work. You know, you wouldn't spend that amount of money. I understand that. My issue that I see quite a lot is that marketing agencies, they will, they'll go straight into one of and this is what supposedly in inverted air quotes business, when a company will import with their like made up name, 10,000 drones, not really bothered about the build quality, not bothered about like, you know, the enjoyment, the story or anything like that. But what they'll do is they'll manufacture the notion that this is a great piece of technology. So as a mod, one of the things that we see a lot and what you sort of take on board after a while is the way that terminology and graphics and design and buzz is created to make you ignore all of those things. So that you're just like, oh, drone. Yeah, I've seen these drones. I've seen people smiling and laughing and having a good experience with these things. Right. So I feel like the magicians that we used to know as kids have moved into social media.
I'm telling you,
the magicians are now in social media and they're putting up marketing sites and importing these things. And so my issue is that, okay, great. You bought them for $10 each and you're selling them for $50. You're making money. The bank manager loves you. You're making profit, but at what expense?
Right. At
what expense? So when I see a lot of hunters, and I'm not going to say they're uneducated hunters because that'd be super disrespectful of me. And I'm not trying to create a class structure economy here in terms of like your intellect level on product knowledge. Like that just comes from like, I bought crap like when I was a teenager, because I wanted to experience.
We should talk about your experience with Kickstarters too, because you were like really like when I first met you were still trying to get Kickstarters that you had invested in like 2 years before we met.
Right. Like, so that but here's the thing. Instead of that being FOMO, that for me was a new way for somebody passionate to build something to manifest the community and hopefully money, right? Which to me was like, yeah, all right, cut out the middleman. Don't have to like suffer the bank manager. You don't have to go and get a grant and then like adapt your like passion because of it. So I got in for that reason. I was supporting the technology. And And the fact of the matter is that a lot of the stuff that was on there was so cutting edge because of those things. Like somebody could do their passion project.
Sure.
The problem was a lot of the people that were doing it was the first time they'd ever done any kind of business whatsoever,
Right.
you know, and then they were like, oh yeah, no problem. We'll go to China. We'll just import these bits without all the realization. People would like get millions of dollars and then it'd be like, oh, sorry guys, we haven't taken in the fact that we need to post 25,000 of these packages to people. We haven't got enough money for shipping.
Right.
You know, it's like things that you would think, well, come on, you should have thought of that. But actually, you don't think of that. You know, there's a lot of things that you don't think of. So, yeah, I spent a lot of money. Luckily, it was money that I could afford to lose in some ways because it was money that I had from sitting on a domain name that I had for a long time and sold it for a lot of money and did quite well out of it. My disappointment with all of that was realizing that those products, and actually that disappointment's fed into my knowledge of today.
Right. Yes, that's what I mean.
Waiting for a product to come for 2 years and not seeing another product like that on the market at the same time still had that air of exclusivity to it. The problem was I'd forget about most of the products. And then I'd be working away and a package would come and be like, oh, so it's out then. And I'd completely lost interest in it by the time it actually did turn
Well,
up.
do you feel like it was kind of like the high of like how people like just having that new thing or wanting that new thing and just wanting the instant gratification of it, and then that's gone. So it's just get it.
No, it wasn't that for me. It was more communicative for me. It was like, oh, look, you know, they've got 48%. And when crowdfunding first came out, this notion that you could craft a community in 48 hours of 1,000 people who are willing to like punt $20 into something because here's the thing. When I saw a Kickstarter in the early days, people would spend time on the video, they would spend time on the pictures, they spend time on the text. Like I could tell, I made my own decision that this person really wanted this to happen, right? And on the majority of the ones that I put in, I would say 70% of them like came off. They just took really a long time to do it. So in my early days, I would say I really enjoyed the buzz of getting them to 100%.
Right.
I would say the other 30 or 40% was that I thought the device that I was going to buy would make me unique as a media maker.
Right.
Because I was doing social media like early days, like doing audio, doing podcasting. One of the big things that I learned early on is you only get a certain amount of time in front of like a CEO of a startup.
Right.
So I needed to
have the gadget, then you can kind of
have the gadget. I can stand out. Right. Exactly.
We could do a whole episode on just crowdfunding, because I think that's something really interesting that like have the middlemen, like you say, not having to please the bank manager. But then on the other hand, the bank manager is the one who's going to be like, hey, how can you afford shipping once these things? So, you know, having like, how can we have that balance? I think people are more educated now than they ever have been in starting that stuff. But like, I would love to just do an entire episode on crowdfunding.
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of those crowdfunding companies then had a problem where, you know, 48 hours before you just had a business PayPal account and now 2 days later you've got $2.1 million in it. And they're like, we need to have a conversation. It's like, no, I'm just doing crowdfunding.
Yeah, like,
you know, so
I got 2,000 friends.
And here's the point is that that's how disruptive technology is these days, right? We're literally changing marketplaces.
Right.
Banks and money and everything is changing hands really quickly. This stuff is moving really quickly. Yeah. And the education on the stuff needs to move quickly as well. Otherwise, we just have a warehouse somewhere full of 20 million drones that nobody's ever going to buy because they've found out that their $50 drone is crap and they've posted it on YouTube and now everybody knows.
Yes, that's a big problem. That's a really big problem, reputation and like legacy. And then if you're that one, people are so smart. Like people are so smart. They know that you were sent that product by that brand. And if you mess up even once and you give a half-hearted or rushed review, a bunch of people get their hands on it and it's trash, well, they're just going to think that you're, you know, a sellout. So you really only get one shot at that stuff. I
did a Kickstarter, so I can absolutely tell you what happened to me is that, you know, I had a great idea. I went around, I literally pounded the pavement looking for donations. Maybe we should save that for the Kickstarter episode. We'll do it for another one. Sure. Okay. All right. So, let's quickly get on to what our role is on the site so that we can kind of tie this up with a nice little bow before we get into our like picks of the week. Because I know we're like 34 minutes in.
We have to intro it. Everyone's going to understand, like, we had to intro what we want to do and what Steam Hunted is if you're If you
all right, so do you just want to jump into the good and the bad and the fugly? Then is that what you want to do?
Yeah, we could do that, and then let's just do that, and then we could talk about like go a little bit deeper on moderating and kind of our thoughts about that, because I think we kind of touched a lot of that as we were speaking, like things that kind of, like I get triggered.
I was off. I was off to the races.
I was looking at our little audio waveforms, and it was just a solid purple bar at your name and just flat line on my name. So let's turn that.
Oh, all right. Turn it around. Go for it.
Okay, so this is not now correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't intend to do this segment as like reviews or best ofs or my picks or really as curation. I think that as we mod, there are certain things that elicit certain emotions. So I'll have one of two or three emotions as I'm modding.
So diplomatic. She's good. She's good.
Like,
she was a politician in a past life. She just doesn't want to get a downvote from any of these people. That's what it is.
There's no downvotes. And you know what? Never mind. I'm not going there. Ooh, I'm not going there. Baby. I don't want this because I really don't want it to be political is really my point. And we're not going to mention any of the names of the people who hunted these things.
No, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the only reason why we put in about being good or bad or, indifferent about these things is that as a mod, you're stepping through doing these, trying to verify them as fast as possible because you want them to be in the list.
Right. So. Exactly. So and like I'll have like reactions like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like I'll feel like that little kid watching the As Seen on TV commercials. And sometimes I'll have like the world's most earth-shattering eye roll. Or sometimes I'll just be like, oh, this is so dumb. Like why it's going to be in a landfill in 2 years. So I think when we talk about these things, they're just supposed to be examples that for me, they just elicited a certain response. And I want to talk about that response in the week. So,
wow.
So, I mean, that's how I see those three categories, the good, the bad, and I like how you said fugly, or I think we have weird or the strange whoa, out there stuff. But I mean, do you disagree? Like, how do you kind of choose from these categories that we're about to talk about?
No, I think the reason why I think picking three things is that hopefully the people who have seen these things in passing on the list maybe not even thought about it before. Maybe, I guess I'm hoping that in some way it might educate their thinking to think about their hunts or their purchases in some way. Just to have dimension. An extra kind of just an extra 10 milliseconds of consideration of like, do I need to care about this? Is it something that I even think about? Yeah, I think one of the things about podcasts for me is that occasionally I get a nugget of information that I'm like, oh yeah, I do think like that, or I don't think about that at all, and that's kind of interesting. I need to explore it. So I kind of
that's cool. Just alternate perspectives.
Right. So do you want to do your first like good one that stood out for you from Steam Hunt that you were like, oh, I like this because of X, Y, Z, and give me some rationale?
So I love this one, and this is one that the best hunts for me are the ones who are like, oh, I wish I had found that first. Like, I wish I got to be the one to hunt that because it's so rad. This one is called, it's from a company called Insignia Technologies. And what they do is they have this little smart sticker. It's almost like kind of like a scratch and sniff. It's got special material on it. And it gives you a color-coded indicator about how fresh the food is in the package. Something like that is like, just blows my mind. I think that's so cool. I think it solves so many problems to do with, our issues with food waste. I know people who live and die by that little date on the food, on the food expiration. And I think this could really educate a lot of people that like, yes, the date is there for a reason, but 9 times out of 10, if you eat it a day, 2 days past the date, you're not going to keel over and die. Now, don't come for
a lot of weight.
I'm not. I don't want to get sued for saying that, but I think it really educates people about the freshness of their food. Just a very simple, like if it was a simple universal indicator that everybody knew what it was. If the color is this, it means this. If the color is this, it means this. And it also keeps companies and it keeps the grocery stores accountable as well. So they can't just like flag, just chuck whatever they want and not do proper quality control. So really I love anything that puts more information and more power into the consumer's hand, that they can make a choice. Okay, this is still fresh. It's verified by this little, it's not an electronic sensor. I believe it's just some type of material that has a reaction to the freshness of the food.
It might be some kind of moisture thing, maybe.
Yeah, or some pH level, something like that. And it's like a very simple bit of technology that it puts more power into people's hands about what they're buying, why they're buying it, and if it's safe to eat. I think that's really important.
I actually remember that hunt because I was thinking that the obvious next step for that was blockchain, and we're already seeing that in China when it comes to meat and fish, and where did this fish come from exactly because of tainting of food and things like that. So that's a cool one.
How about you?
So my good one that I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense, was this thing called Zunum Aero, which was this, first of all, it was 3 times cheaper aeroplane, which was like 3 times cheaper. Okay, I'll read on. And it was basically electric airplanes. So I'm not talking like big 737s. I'm talking about the little private
personal
jets, really.
Yeah,
the little personal jets. Yeah. So they're going to be kind of 2 or 3 times faster than the ordinary one, because obviously there's going to be a lightness to it. There's going to be less noisy. And it's going to roll out to like 10,000 plus airports by next year. Now, the thing that really hit me about it wasn't necessarily about, yes, no brainer, we should have electric aircraft, but about the idea or the notion of how quiet the world could be.
I like that.
Like,
that's a good perspective. I never thought of that.
There were some really nice like shots of this plane, like you would see in a lounge or something with the planes against like a mountain, or like, really beautiful, like glowing skies. And it got me thinking of like, all right, if we were outside on a bit of a dock of a bay kind of thing, like fishing or looking out at barbecue, and seeing the plane, but not hearing it, and it just being part of the scene, kind of, it started to make me think about how different the world is going to feel when things have a different sound.
Wow. It will make my life easier when I'm trying to record voiceovers, let me tell you.
Well, there is that. I don't think we can we probably could bioengineer your crickets so they don't make noises, but I don't think that's advisable. So that one really stood out for me, because it was way more than electric planes for me. It was like, quiet transportation, how liberating.
I think that's kind of an important, that's a really cool skill to exercise. Is if you think about a product and you see a product, what would life be like in a world where everybody had one of these? Is that a better world or a not better world, or the same world? I think that's a really cool mental exercise to put yourself physically in that future where everybody's got
just think about
and see what that feel like.
I was just thinking, from a private plane perspective, I mean, traveling on planes, they're noisy, there's turbulence, there's all that sort of stuff. Like chatting to somebody's kind of awkward because you're processing all the background noise of the engines. Like what would happen to those people on the flight when all of a sudden
it just felt like a living room?
A comfort. Yeah, exactly. There's a comfort to it. Like the discussion then becomes about life and technology and how we've advanced ourselves, and like every iteration of that, there's something I believe gets unlocked on an evolution level. It just goes deep with me.
I like that. I like that mental exercise of putting yourself in that. Okay, let's do your bad first on this one.
All right. So the bad was actually a drone.
Oh no.
The bad. No, because it's the reason why. It's the reason why. It's the reason why I get uptight about it, because I think sometimes people on Steam Hunt, especially when it's just, hunter product, they read the guidelines, they process them on a kind of Borg level, like, okay, as long as I fit these things. And I can feel that there's no love for
I need to make you a t-shirt that says easily triggered by drones, like a warning label.
Or like a picture of me in the middle of it with like a red line through the middle of it.
Just like warning, easily triggered by, like almost like a seizure warning, like easily triggered by drones, because it's such an item of contention for you, specifically drones.
So this one triggered me more than most drones, because this was a kid drone, a drone for a kid, rather than a fully fledged drone, and I kind of kicked it back for PG2 that it was like a toy rather than a drone.
Right.
So like
technology
it was a toy trying to imitate a drone. And also like reading through the advantages were triggering me something rotten. Like that one of them said the helicopter is easy to operate. So I was like, yeah, okay, I understand that. Like, you're going to buy it for a kid or you're going to buy it for yourself. You don't want it to be complicated. I get that. Can be turned off automatically when it is stuck. Have a colorful flashlight so that your helicopter can be seen while flying at night. Charging the battery only takes 50 minutes. And the biggest thing about it that got me so triggered is that the battery only takes 50 minutes to charge, but you only get 7 minutes.
Oh, boo! If I was a kid,
so from an ecological point of view, I was like, I cannot give my child something that's took an hour to charge, and you're only going to get 7 minutes out of it. Like, it's such bad parenting to be like, hey, we're going to go inside and charge it for an hour and we're going to burn coal somewhere.
When you're a kid, an hour might as well be a freaking week. Like,
yeah.
Oh, what a drag.
So I know this thing is super energy inefficient.
It probably
because it's going to be
like the most insane thing too. Oh no. Okay, well that's a justified trigger. I would be triggered by that.
That triggered me. What about yours?
This is not a big deal. I have to remind myself that this is not a big deal because it's an app. And like I have to remember with apps is like the good thing about garbage apps is that at least they won't end up in a landfill somewhere. They're not a physical product. But at the same time, the name of this app is called Lucky Ticket. And there are 3 screenshots of the app. And there's like a little number pad, and then numbers are randomly generated. And there's a smiley face. It's like a little stick figure, and it says like a 6-digit number, 30650. And then it says, "This is Lucky Ticket." And then the next screen says 756321 with a frowny face. "This is not Lucky Ticket." And Lucky Ticket is a belief and mathematical entertainment based on numerological game with, I'm reading this verbatim, now this is not the hunter's words, this is from the Google Play Store, based on numerological game with the number of the ticket. Lucky Ticket is received in the public transport 6-digit number. The sum of the first 3 digits is equal to the sum of the last 3 ones. So this is like some insane like number generator. I don't know what it does. I don't know what problem in my daily life that it solves. It made me so mad. Like, because I think the things that I'm most frustrated about are just the things that are just noise and useless. Like my whole life is geared toward trying to minimalize and try to streamline and live simply. And this is Lucky Ticket.
Do you know what goes through my mind when I heard you talk about this? Was all these really kind of sleeper cell apps that spies around the world are downloading from app stores that they use for longitude and latitude.
It could be a cover, yeah.
Like this is,
or it could be just spyware on your phone. Like, what's the like? Let me just show you this real quick. So there's one review, and this review is a 1-star. And the best part about it is that this person is just as angry as me, but took the time to write a review, which is so good because it's like they were just infuriated. They wrote, "What is the point of this? I don't get it. All it does is add the first 3 digits and the last 3. If the sums are the same, it's lucky," and then 4 question marks. So the person, in my mind, the person really wanted to know what numbers were lucky. And they downloaded this app having like hopes. Maybe they wanted to like use it to choose lottery numbers or something of what the lucky numbers are.
Isn't that interesting? Because you've just totally described the reaction that a person has when they assume something's going to be something awesome. You've just described it perfectly there. Like, I'm going to download this because it says it does this. And then you get in there, it's like, this is trash. I've just wasted my time. Right. This is not what I wanted it to be.
What I learned from this hunt is there is a market for people who want to know what lucky numbers are, which I had no clue that there were people lying in bed at night being like, I wonder if 34692 is a lucky number or not.
This is why you only go to kebab shops at certain times of the night, Biter, because there's people in there trying to get a lucky number.
And a hunt like this is enough for me to like be like, I'm done. I'm walking. Like I can't. How can I? My brain is off on such a like frustration like a whirlwind by that point. I can't even keep modding because whatever the next product is like, it wouldn't be fair to them because my brain's just, I'm trying to mod the next hunt and I'm like, what the heck is a lucky number? Why a lucky number? Like, I can't move past it.
So. Yeah, at that point you're like walking upstairs, grumbling, getting a glass of water, like what just happened? Trying to reevaluate your whole life's choices.
If you're listening to this and you come from a culture where this makes sense to you, like I do know that certain cultures have things with certain numbers, that there are like lucky numbers. So maybe I'm completely just a cultural thing. I'm completely missing why this would have a purpose in somebody's life. But
yeah, maybe they use it to pick lottery numbers.
Yeah, like I don't know, man. I'm as mystical as they come, and I was not down with the lucky number.
You were like dumbfounded.
Yeah.
By it. All right, so like quickly to tie up this first episode, because I'm sure we'll get into different topics.
Do you want to go for the weird ones? You want to save the weird ones? Yeah.
I was going to put that one in. No, we'll jump them in, but like I kind of, maybe we'll make them a little bit faster, or maybe we'll take a concentration of them and make a topic out of them in the future, because I think that's what's going to happen for me, is that I'll go over the good and bad and strange, and then out of that be like, oh, I've just had a realization as to what infuriates me about products, or like what makes me choose something else.
Why you got true.
All right, so my strange one this week is a thing called FutureNet Foundation Teddy Bear.
Oh no.
And the title said, "This is a nice gadget for your collection and a great cuddle."
No, I'm scared. I'm instantly scared.
And so then, similar to you, it kind of threw me a little bit that the subtitle was, "This is a nice gadget for your collection." So I scroll down and it's just literally a teddy with a t-shirt on that says FutureNet Foundation Network that helps. Oh. And then the Hunter comment then says, "This can please the kids. It can also help the foundation to carry out their charity work." So then what happens in my head is like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. You want to like, you want to get people to buy this bear and the charity and all that stuff. So then in my head, it's like, this is somebody who's obviously wanting to take part in Steam Hunt, and that's awesome, but hasn't realized there's a link there for guidelines, doesn't really want to read it, but wants to take part, wants to put something up, wants to step through and be there. And at that point, we should have the ability to help those people understand what the site is, because it's obvious that we've failed.
Something's not clear
it's not clear. And I think even today the link on the top right hand corner could be made.
So there was no actual like technological component to the bear. It was actually just a stuffed teddy bear.
No,
because I know when I'm modding, I would look at something like that and be like, what is it, Bluetooth? Like, what does it do? Like, you know what I mean? Because you're looking for that thing.
That was the first thing. Right. I mean, I put in the comments, while the teddy is indeed adorable, unless it's got technology on board, it's very much just material.
Right.
Because like blunt and on to the next thing. But, you know, it's strange, but the only reason why I brought it up is that as a mod, I'm not trying to shut people down. It's obvious at that point we've kind of failed to describe what the site is, or to get across what the site is. And I think doing podcasts and doing video and getting people to understand who the people are and what they're going there for, or to make them open their perspectives a little bit in terms of how a product can influence people's thinking. You know, like, I'm hoping that products that I put up that are a better version of something else that's been seen, instead of like, oh, that did well in the top 10 yesterday, I should put something up similar.
Sure.
Something that I've used, and you know, I recommend this over that product because the company's been around for 20 years and they have a legacy, or it's a family run business, or, you know, there's a story behind it and there's a reason why you should invest your money in this over that.
Right. Well, maybe there will be a hunt for all of those things one day. Maybe there will be, you know, I would love one day for there to be me to be out modding and then saying, you know what, this is really awesome, but because it doesn't have a technological aspect, it really belongs here. Foundation hunt or charity hunt, or do you know what I'm saying? Like, just to have a place for those things. Cause you're right. I think people a lot of times do have a good place in their heart of why they want to post something, but it just doesn't fit this particular very first early days iteration of what Product Hunt is trying to do in terms of technology.
Right. Steam Hunt.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. Please don't take my mod privileges away. Steam Hunt. All right. Let me take my weird one real quick. It wasn't a weird post. It's just a freaking strange object, but I've had it open on my screen while you've been talking and I cannot stop staring at it. It's a pod. It looks like something out of Cocoon, like that movie from the 80s with those pods that end up in the pool with the old folks. it looks like it's this grayish pod. It looks like it landed from another universe, and it is called Open Vessel. And it's it comes with an app. It says choose your experience, relax, energize, daydream, meditate, listen to music. So it's like this thing that you sit inside, and it's kind of like a chamber that you can shut yourself off from. You can see like what kind of things get me excited, where you can shut yourself off from the outside world and like have a moment of yourself, or work in quiet or silence or meditate. And it's futuristic as hell. I'm sure it's expensive as anything, but like it's the type of thing where if someone walked into your house and saw it, they'd be like, oh, like they'd be waiting for you to unzip your face from the back of your head. Like it's just a weird looking product, but I would love it. I would absolutely love one to just sit in and be like, yes, please play me the song of a meadow. And just chill in this pod. It just like we have to link maybe this stuff, but you have to see it to like fully appreciate it. Wild.
I'm worried if I ever went. I'm worried if I ever went into one of them, if I'd ever leave, and then another clone of me would actually go out into the world.
Maybe it's a human photocopier. We don't know about it. I'm telling you, it looks whack, and it does look a little sinister. But like, please get me in there. Give me the aromatherapy, the LED lights, the like. I want all of it. I want the full experience. Put me in that pod. I want to come out 16 years older or younger. I don't care. Just time travel me.
Mystical, man. You just always want the mystical angle.
So
You're
weird.
like, give me an experience.
Give me the open vessel. I want like just a pod. Or put me in one of those next time I have to fly like across the Atlantic Ocean for 6 hours. Just put me in the pod and just wake me up when we're done. I love it.
You heard it. You heard it here, folks. Put me in the pod and wake me up.
I want to be in the pod
when we're ready.
Yeah. So that was it.
All right. I think we're kind of like tied up here for this. I mean, it's like an hour in. Hopefully this was interesting to people. Hopefully that like shares a little bit of our little modding and product journey so far. Well, I definitely want to dig deeper into the whole like product selection, why I will spend extra money, or why I will forego buying something until I can afford the version of it, and what my process tree is of stepping through.
I think we have a lot of potential. I don't think that we originally intended to have topics, but I think we have kind of like a lot of topics to go off of based on, us just kind of going back and forth today and giving an introduction. We could really dive deeper into like kickstarting, crowdfunding campaigns, and quality and ecology, and like you said, some of the things that come up when we're like triggered by a post or really, really into a post. We can just like kind of narrow in on those and maybe set a we haven't talked about any of this. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, just set like a little theme for the week and then go into our picks. They're going to be a little bit more structured than today. Today was like us just explaining who we are and what Steam Hunt is. And
really wanted to get it done. Really wanted to get started.
Oh man, the universe was putting pause on this for like 2 weeks. So,
but another thing I will say is that because we record it in the browser, we've got like a really cool site that we use. We can also invite hunters on the platform. Like there's a bunch of people who I really respect their hunts, and I can see they put work into them, that I would love to get them on here and ask them like 5 or 6 questions. And then once they've asked the questions, they kind of log off, or we mute them as we're talking. And just bring on board people from Steam Hunt, because there's hundreds of people on there that are submitting things every single day. If you want to do the same thing, if you want to learn a little bit about it, go to steamhunt.com, check it out. There's a little guidelines thing that you have to read through. If you don't have a Steam account, you can go to signup.steamit.com. There's 3 different ways to get an account. You can get one for free, but it takes anywhere between 7 and 14 days to get verified, or you can buy one, or we can buy you one. Maybe we can donate maybe we can start doing that every week. We can donate a login.
Yeah, that would be cool. Give away some logins. Yeah.
Set up some accounts. So if you've listened to this all the way to the end, then get in touch with us, and the first 2 people to do that will set up your account.
Oh, yay. And also, if you like the sound of our voices, we have another podcast called Positively Negative, which is a little bit more silly goose than this one. If you can imagine, this one was a little bit silly goose, but where we just talk about, whatever comes into our minds about living 3,000 miles away from each other and digital working and all kinds of fun, crazy stuff. So we have that podcast as well. So That would be awesome if you check that out, if you want to check it out.
Normally Dale's more positive than me and I'm the negative one. Sometimes
yeah, except for when it comes to numerology apps, and I just really go down the rabbit hole of negativity. So I think that's it. And what do we say? You can subscribe to this podcast and check us out on Anchor, but the podcast is distributed like literally everywhere that your ears can listen.
Yeah, it's anchor.fm/ProductSense, I think, right?
And then you can also listen, we like Pocket Casts.
It's at the end in our outro.
Oh, duh. I'm outroing the outro. I'm introing the outro, damn it.
You need to click the mute button.
Note taken. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Subscribe with Pocket Casts and get notified right away.
And if you use Anchor FM, feel free to call in and leave us a message. We try and reply in our next cast.
If you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to anchor.fm/ProductSense.
And if you'd like to hang out with us on Discord, there's a link on that page as well. We'll speak to you soon.